About 200 years ago, in North America, groups of settlers, English speakers moving south and Spanish-speaking Mexicans moving north, began to move into the desert lands between Mexico and the USA. Caught between the two and ready to fight to keep the land were the American Indians of the region. They were mostly of the Apache tribe, and they knew the desert very well. Soon, the settlers and the Apache were fighting all the time. Surprise attacks on the enemy's home were the usual way. No one knew who started it or when it would end. Geronimo, an Apache chief, was born in the middle of June 1829 into the Bedonkohe Apache clan in what is now the U.S. state of New Mexico, but was still part of Mexico at the time. His grandfather was chief of the Bedonkohe clan in his day. He had a traditional Apache education and tribal childhood. He married at 17 years old and went on to have 3 children. One day the men left to get provisions in the town, but on the way home they learned that the Mexicans had attacked their homes. Many women and children were killed in the attack, and when Geronimo got home at night, he found that the Mexicans had killed his wife, his 3 children, and his mother, an old woman. When the others who had lost family came together to plan their revenge on the Mexicans, Geronimo made sure he was there. For decades, the Apache were at war with both Mexico and the USA, killing thousands of Mexicans and hundreds of Americans. Sometimes there were peace talks, but Geronimo said that the whites of both sides broke their word too often. Especially the Mexicans, he felt. Geronimo fought both nations and became famous as a brave and clever guerrilla leader. The Apache fighters knew the land very well and would often lose U.S. or Mexican soldiers chasing them by going into caves. The soldiers would wait for them to come out, but the Apache knew secret exits. But in the end, Geronimo and his now small group of 36 men, women, and children surrendered to the U.S. Army. They became prisoners of war of the USA. Geronimo was to stay a prisoner of war for the rest of his life. Of course, as he grew old, he was allowed to travel and even appear in shows, but he could never go back to his old Apache lands. In the end, Geronimo, aged around 80, fell off his horse and lay in the cold all night. It killed him. He was buried in the Apache prisoner of war cemetery in an unmarked grave. Why is his name still known? For many, he was a brave defender of his people who, after his family was murdered, went to war against the Americans and Mexicans who were taking his people's lands. He did kill many people, men, women, and children, sometimes in terrible ways. But he was a man born into very violent times. He is still a very political character. At the time of the Vietnam War, he was seen as a symbol of resistance to the American empire, a shining light for native peoples everywhere who resist invaders. And again, when the US organized the operation to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, they used the code name Geronimo for Osama bin Laden and for the operation itself. Geronimo's descendants in America complained to the US government. They said it showed how, even today, the USA sees Geronimo as a foreign enemy and not a Native American.